To attain victory, one must follow a path that is in truth quite simple and straightforward. Victory means the total defeat of Moscow Empire, followed by the rise of a government that is no longer hostile, so to guarantee the lasting peace. For that to happen, the new government must be democratic, because only a democratic Moscovia could peacefully coexist with the rest of the world without their imperial baggage. But, as we know from history, democracy cannot be imposed from above. We've seen the results of such attempts when America poured trillions of dollars into Afghanistan, and yet it failed miserably. We also see this after Soviet Union collapsed. Democracy was briefly introduced in Russia, but it did not take root. There was no demand for it coming from the people. The population actually was unfamiliar with it. They didn't understand its value. What's even worse, they began to associate democracy with economic hardship. That was a result of their transitioning from planned to market economy.
For Russian people, democracy is synonym of criminal anarchy.
So when the 2012 came and Putin returned to his third term, Russians gave up their democracy without any fight.
Today in Moscow, perhaps the largest rally of the past decade took place. Tens of thousands of people who disagreed with the results of the recent elections came to Bolotnaya Square in the capital.
I see enough people here to take over the Kremlin and the White House right now. But we are a peaceful force.
And here's the fundamental truth we can derive from this. A genuine demand for democracy in Moscovia can only come the hard way, through the agony of their devastating defeat. Only then will the population begin to question the myth they've clung to. Only then they will start to realize that violating international law is not good, that having a dictator is not strength, that being an empire is not glory, but an evolutionary dead end. And that democracy, after all, as Churchill said, is the worst form of government, except for all others. From this, we can derive yet another truth. Until the majority of Moscovian society desires democracy, their state will never cease being aggressive. History shows this very clearly. Their traditions of lying and domination has not changed. They've just adapted them to fit new technologies. Just look at their present-day culture. War is glorified in movies and songs. They have car stickers in Russia that say, "We can repeat," implying another world war. Their popular Telegram channel is literally called "Do Not Stop War." Putin once said that Russia's borders never end, and that was not a metaphor. It is their mindset. And here's a dead Muscovite occupier who was found wearing a patch. I'm not getting a passport. I'm just waiting for Russia to be everywhere. So, consider supporting Ukraine armed forces as a gratitude. Thanks to them, this particular Muscovite will never bring Russia to your home. And remember, it's not just a donation. It's an investment into our collective European safety and global safety overall. But if you want to see the most accurate predictor of Russia's future, look at their children. They have already been brainwashed, put onto their knees, raised on the values of militarism, and have hatred towards Ukrainians and the West instilled deeply within their innocent minds.
По полям, мы стреляем по хохлам. За Россию и дедов расстреляем всех хохлов. Привет, русский мир!
Учись, как надо убивать хохлов. Сейчас будешь следующим тренироваться, понял?
Так точно.
Понял, сокол?
Так точно.
Хохлы сами себя не убьют, блядь. Это должны сделать мы.
На карте покажи, кто враг.
Американцы.
Что с ними нужно сделать?
Убить их.
So, with each new year, more of those indoctrinated children become adults, ready to kill for the empire and ready to die for the emperor. And make no mistake, they are preparing for the global war. As I have said this before on my channel, Muscovites always lie, until they talk about whom they want to invade next.
we need to carefully examine the experience of the special military operation, which apparently is the winter war of our generation, and the territory of Ukraine is a sort of forward staging ground for a major battle with NATO.
Personally, I consider the path of a Third World War more realistic, because knowing us, knowing our leader Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, knowing how everything is set up here, it's impossible. That is, there's absolutely no chance that we'll just fold our hands and say, oh, you know, it didn't work out.
So to sum it up, for victory to come, Muscovites must demand democracy. For that, they need to go through the agony of pain that would follow as a result of a total and unconditional destruction of their empire.
The greatest trick the Muscovites have ever pulled was convincing the world that they are Russians.
Now, let's examine the events that could theoretically lead us to the destruction of their empire. In total, I've identified 8 possible such scenarios, and from there we'll use a process of deduction to determine which one of them is most likely to bring about the desired victory. Scenario number 1. Military intervention, Berlin style. Think of Germany, 1945. The Allies bombed Berlin, Soviet troops stormed Hitler's bunker, and the Third Reich collapsed in ruins. There was no negotiation, just a total, humiliating defeat. Scenario number 2. Economic collapse, Soviet Union style. In the late 1980s, the USSR was bleeding cash from its arms race in a Cold War. It had a failing war in Afghanistan, a Chernobyl disaster, and a collapsing oil market. Add in sanctions, isolation, and a pre-planned economy that was flawed from the get-go, and so by 1991, the whole empire just could not feed its people and collapsed.
But the Soviet president's biggest headache is surely the economy, deteriorating by the day.
No money means no food means no empire. Possible scenario number 3, an inside coup, golden snuff box style. In 1801, Tsar Paul I of Moscovia was assassinated by his own nobles. They stormed into his bedroom, hit him in the temple with a golden snuff box, and strangled him with a scarf. No public revolt, no marching armies, just one morning, a new ruler. Scenario number 4, military coup, Prigozhin style. In 2023, the whole world held its breath as Prigozhin marched towards Moscow. For a moment, it felt like the unthinkable was happening. Though the coup failed at the end, but not because of the resistance, but because its leader hesitated. Putin was basically cornered. They were blocking roads towards Moscow with utility trucks. That moment of doubt cost Prigozhin his life. Scenario number 5. Mass uprising, Romanian style. In 1889, Romania was gripped by fear under dictator Nicolae Ceausescu. His secret police was everywhere. Dissent meant death. But then something cracked. During what seemed like just another routine rally, a protest erupted, and this time it didn't die out. The army refused to fire on civilians, and within a week, Ceausescu was captured, trialed, and executed, live on television. Scenario number 6, nuclear strike, Hiroshima and Nagasaki style. You already realized that this one is the least favorable scenario. However, it's not off the table of possibilities. Granted, if they fire first, it would leave no choice for the West but to respond. Just a couple of nukes on their population-dense cities, and one can bid farewell to Moscow Empire for good, thus accomplishing our goals: victory and long-lasting peace. Scenario number 7, colonial rebellion, India and Chechnya style. In 1947, the British Empire was exhausted. It had ruled India for almost 200 years, but Gandhi's non-violent movement, mass protests, and growing global pressure made it unsustainable. So-called Russia holds dozens of non-Muscovy regions by force. Chechnya, Dagestan, Sakha, Buryatia, any of them could lead a fuse. Chechnya actually could have succeeded if others would follow. However, it was the sole fighter for freedom amongst the entire world. One can only imagine how betrayed and devastated Chechen people must have felt. And the last possible scenario is foreign intervention, Soleimani style. In 2020, Iranian General Soleimani, one of the region's most powerful men, was erased by a US drone in a precision strike. Now he's there, and then he's not. In another case, beautifully captured on video, a Hezbollah commander, Nasrallah, was eliminated in similar style. Nothing left but a clean hole in the ground made by a bunker-buster missile. The West has full capability to decapitate the Moscow Empire like it did with Soleimani or Narsala. Heck, one useful idiot even claimed that the Biden administration tried to do just that.
Which the Biden administration did. They tried to kill Putin.
Really?
Yes, they did.
Wow.
Wow, indeed. Amazing how he can lie so blatantly and remain a popular anchor in the United States. But regardless, we can already rule out this scenario out. Setting aside the enormous nuclear risks, such a scenario would not trigger a demand for democracy. It could also easily backfire, replacing Putin with someone just as brutal but far more efficient. Now, for example, like Igor Strelkov, who is sitting in a prison right now for critiquing Putin too much. Along with this scenario, we can also cross out with confidence the nuclear strike and military intervention, for obvious reasons. Getting nuked on the path to victory is not an option to consider. Now, inside coup, military coup, mass uprising, and colonial rebellion, they all have extremely low chances. Granted, all other variables stayed as they are today. Putin has made the Moscow Empire sterile from any kind of rebellious thoughts, be it among masses, colonies, generals, or inner circle. Putin is paranoid. He is not letting anyone near him with a 6-foot pole. Literally.
Я все наступление провел в карантине перед встречей с Владимиром Владимировичем. В принципе, что нужно сказать, вы скажите, я все скажу.
Никакие тайны сейчас не выдаешь, нет?
Нет, никакие тайны не выдаю.
He uses doubles when appearing in public. He uses actors and video editing tricks when appearing next to other people. All of the generals in the Empire's army are selected based only on one quality: blind loyalty. There is no individuality left in them to act on their own. Mass uprisings cannot happen in a population that was raised to be obedient and apathetic.
Does he blame Ukraine for what's happening here?
I don't know who's blame. I'm not into politics.
In fact, you can see this right now. Muscovites don't even care that at least 500,000 of their own people are killed and that their economy is in a downward spiral with no end in sight. As long as they have food to eat, their obedience to the emperor knows no limits. They're completely like serfs in this regard. Every decision has already been made for them. The only thing that they want is food. And of course, there is no one with a reputation like Prigozhin had on the political horizon of Moscovia. Putin has learned his lesson, and he made a spokesman for the military, a Chechen guy, Abtialudinov. Unlike Prigozhin, he would never have support among Muscovites if he would to ever plan a coup. Brilliant tactic on Putin's side. So now, just like that, we are left with only one scenario of their defeat. And if you've been diligent, I've already dropped a hint on how exactly it needs to go down. Economic conditions within the Moscow Empire must get to such a bad point where its own population would have nothing to eat. But here's the caveat. The only place where it would matter for the people to starve is the capital of empire, Moscow. This is the only city where mass protests truly matter. The rest of the country, the rest of the empire can starve or rebel as much as they want and nothing will happen. As long as the population of Moscow has food in their fridge, this economic scenario will not materialize. This is actually the exact scenario how Soviet Union collapsed. At first, the provinces starved, but Moscow kept living well at their expense. Many people would spend entire days traveling to capital and standing in lines just to get some food, as it was the only place they could get some food. Check out this journalist interviewing people on the so-called sausage train that is returning from Moscow. This was in 1989, just 2 years before the collapse.
Скажите, пожалуйста, сколько времени вы потратили на эту поездку?
4 часа.
Месяц выходит так. Одна поездка выходит, 2 дня теряется.
Tell me, please, how many kilograms did you have to carry from Moscow today?
10 kilograms of beef, 3 ducks, and 8 kilograms of sausage. That's just to be able to relax on the weekend. And we tore up our hands standing in that line. We left overnight. A sleepless night and a whole day. That's what today looks like for us.
Back in November, I personally read in the papers about the meat situation. Our region, it said, fulfilled the annual plan ahead of schedule.
Which means all over the planned delivery should go to your stores. But have you seen any of that in your local stores?
No, and to this day, there have been literally no changes in store supply.
The plan was probably set up to deliver there and not to leave anything behind.
But the thing is, you deliver it there, and then you still end up hauling it back.
Well, what else can we do? I just think we need to introduce a fair system for distributing meat.
So, only when the hunger came to the residents of the empire's capital, only when their stores looked like this, only then Moscow saw its biggest uprising ever. And here's another lesson from history. Muscovites did not protest when nearly 200,000 people were killed in Chechnya, their own country by that standards. They didn't hit the streets when their children were killed in Afghanistan. They did not rebel when Stalin was murdering millions of them in gulags. In fact, they praise him and erect ever new monuments to the bloodiest tyrant they ever had. Muscovites love being dominated, and they love dominating others. Such is the core pillar of their civilization. Many in the West failed to see this, and thus failed to act accordingly. I can't help but mention Karl Marx's quote again to illustrate my point.
In the terrible and abject school of Mongolian slavery that Muscovy was nursed and grew up, it gathered strength only by becoming a virtuoso in the craft of serfdom. Even when emancipated, Muscovy continued to perform its traditional part of the slave, as well as the master.
And here's another great quote on this subject by Alexander Nevzorov.
A crucial component of the Russian consciousness is ordinary masochism. To earn this people's true love, you have to crush them, torment them, humiliate them, and openly kill them by the millions, just like Stalin did.
I really enjoy how Alexander puts his thoughts. They're so lethal and so to the point. And you can hear more of those in my video, a brutally honest peek into the Russian mindset. So, highly recommend you check that one out. So by now we have established a clear logical chain. To achieve victory and lasting peace, there must be a genuine demand for democracy among the Muscovites. For that to happen, the population must endure the agony of their empire's total destruction. And the most probable and favorable scenario for that collapse is economic hardship. Economic hardship so severe that it would lead to food shortages in Moscow. Until the capital goes hungry, the aggression will continue. This is yet another fundamental truth and our ultimate goal. We in the West must seek to achieve this goal. Once grocery stores in Moscow will look like they did before the USSR collapsed, then we will finally have our victory and long-lasting peace. However, this time we should not be helping them to recover. If you recall, Americans saved them twice. First time they fed them after the collapse of their Russian Empire. And then Americans fed that ungrateful population for a second time after the collapse of USSR.
Господи, благослови Америку.
This time, no help at all. Let them feel the full weight of their mistakes. Let them come begging for democracy. And only then we should help them by exchanging food for nukes. Moscovia must cease being nuclear power for the benefit of all. They are the only nation using it for blackmail and for threats. 40% of Russians think that nuclear strike on Ukraine is justified. And that, my dear friends, is madness. Madness that should be put to end. So now, how do we go about achieving this goal of making Moscow go hungry? Well, there are two straightforward paths: military aid to Ukraine and economic pressure on Russia. First, the military front. Provide Ukraine with everything that it needs, in particular long-range missiles in mass. I don't understand what is the West waiting for. Ukraine will destroy Russia's wealth-generating oil infrastructure faster than any sanctions ever will. It will demoralize the empire, it will humiliate them, it will cripple them, it will shatter their will to fight. Supporting Ukraine does not just stop one war. It deters China from invading Taiwan. It reinforces international law. It discourages nuclear proliferation, makes nuclear blackmail obsolete, and most importantly, it's the right thing to do. Helping people being genocided is just morally right thing to do. For a deeper breakdown on how to stop the war, watch my video titled accordingly, where I lay out a 4-part peace plan. Simple, practical, and doable. Now, the economic path. The EU must stop funding Moscow. Isn't that obvious? Stop buying. Close every loophole in the sanctions. Plug the leaks hard and fast. Again, I don't understand what the EU is waiting for. Sadly, neither of those solutions is being implemented anywhere near to their full potential. Hence, this is already a 4th year of war that could have been stopped the same year it was started. The West has all the means to do that. It just has no will. And that's not just unfortunate. Such indecisiveness could be fatal to the West. Because, as we have deduced, the Moscow Empire will never stop until it is defeated. Our dependence on Russian resources was a historic mistake. And every mistake has a price. The longer we delay, the more the chaos spirals out of control. The stronger the China gets, the stronger the Iran gets. Even North Korea feeds off that, cooperating with Moscow Empire. Not to mention, such mistake costed thousands of Ukrainian lives and keeps costing even more with each day this war drags on. Appeasement and inaction is what got us in this situation. Only decisive strength and action will get us out. Pay with a bit of your comfort now, or risk paying with your lives later. The choice is yours to make. My name is Yaroslav. I'm from Ukraine. Thank you all for watching until the end. I truly appreciate it. It means that my thoughts have value, and that is why I'm making those videos. I hope I'm sharing some value and people learn new things. So, keep your hand on the pulse of reality. History is watching us. And of course, in any future predictions, there are black swans, events that cannot be predicted at all, like COVID or the fall of Assad regime, or even Prigozhin's march onto Moscow caught the world off guard. Any day now, Putin might find his own golden snuff box. But I wouldn't bet on it. The root cause of Gorbachev implementing liberal reforms was economical hardship. Without those reforms, we'd never see a journalist reporting about issues on a sausage train.
I made a special effort to come on the show today because I have privately, amongst my friends, and also in occasional newspapers and television shows, mentioned this show as being bad. And I wanted to, I felt that that wasn't fair, and I should come here and tell you that I don't, it's not so much that it's bad as it's hurting America. So I wanted to come here today and say, here's just what I wanted to tell you guys. Yeah. Stop. Stop hurting America.
Okay, now.
Does Russian aggression concern you that they could, why not?
Because I watched Tucker Carlson's interview. Putin don't really want to do anything. You know, I think that's old news. I don't really think that he wants to do anything.
Do you think that Russia has ill intent towards the United States?
I don't. No, I don't. After watching the interview with Tucker Carlson, I do not.
He invaded Ukraine, killing thousands of people.
That's fine. That's fine with me.